It's wonderful. I'm thrilled that the books have come this far. It's magical that I can sit in my kitchen and type and then travel 1,000 miles, and there are people who have read the book and enjoyed it. It's just fabulous. It works for me because since I work on several books at the same time, if I get stuck on one or I don't know what happens next, I'll switch to a different book. And by the time I'm done and don't know what happens next on that one, usually something has occurred to me for the book I left, and then I can go back and write on that. So as long as I have several projects going, I tend not to ever get stuck. The problem is when I have to work on just one because I have a deadline, and that's when things get tricky. Well, if I was going to be a hero, I would be very reluctant about it. So I think I identify with that. Lots of great things in history are done by people who really would much rather have been at home taking care of their garden than going out and saving the world. I actually was at a El Supermercado, and I had a phrase come into my head about a dog made of bone, and it turned into this very short story about a fairy godmother and a princess with a bone dog. And I thought I wrote it, and then I thought I was done. But it kept coming back to me. I was thinking, how did she get this dog? Where did it come from? And so I thought maybe I had to write something that answered those questions. So I sat down and started writing and wrote the first couple chapters and thought, okay, that's good. And then didn't really know what happened next. And then a few years later, I picked it up again and realized I did know what happened next now, and that it was about a princess whose sisters were in trouble, and who, in most fairy tales, you'll have three sisters that marry a prince, and the first two will die, and then the third one will live happily ever after. But I think in the real world, if two of your sisters died, you would be very upset, and you would want to know what was going on. So I had to write the story of the third sister who was like, no, I don't want my second sister to die. This has to be stopped, and follow her story. One of the difficult parts is you have to, there are many things that I think are interesting that maybe the reader is not so interested in, so I can't just derail the book to spend a chapter talking about how the city is constructed or something, because I make these things up and I think they're interesting, but they don't move the story along. So the editor will come through and be like, we don't need the layout of the entire city and the history and all of that. And I'll be like, okay, and have to cut it. The book is better afterwards, but I make things up and I'm like, but no one will ever see the part I made up now. Minor Mage is the story of a very young wizard who has an armadillo familiar, and I just thought it was delightful because armadillos are strange little animals, and I really wanted to write a story with an armadillo in it, and the rest of it kind of came about as I needed a place for the armadillo to be. But it became a much more deep story about a boy who gets thrown out of his village because they need him to go bring rain back because of a terrible drought, and the things that he's being expected to do even though he's very young, and he's not a very good wizard, and but he does have an armadillo, so he and the armadillo go off on this grand adventure to try to save people, even though he's not very happy about the way they've treated him. And it was a lot of fun to write. This was a really fun book to write. It's about a girl who has a magical talent, but she can only work with bread. There are lots of people with magic in her world, and she is considered a very, very minor talent because, you work with bread. Okay, you work in a bakery. That's all you can do. But when all of the other wizards go away, and a lot of them are being persecuted or locked up, she has to save the entire city just with her ability to manipulate bread. And so it was a lot of fun to come up with the ways that you could make giant monsters out of bread dough and things like that. So it was just fun, mostly, to write. Well, it's always wonderful to know that people have enjoyed what you do. One thing I love is that when I talk to people who have really related to some part of the book that didn't occur to me would be what they would find moving or important. It's always amazing what people take away from a book that the writer doesn't always know was the part that people would relate to. So I just write the book. I don't always know what it's about until the readers start talking to me.